very welcome back. Now, our next guest is one of Hollywood's finest actors, both on screen and on the stage. His most celebrated acting roles include My Best Friend's Wedding, An Ideal Husband, Shrek, and his very own The Happy Prince.
He's now penned his highly anticipated third memoir, To the End of the World, Travels with Oscar Wilde, and we're thrilled to have him on the show this morning to tell us all about it. Rupert, Everett, you are very welcome. Thank you for tuning in this morning. You're looking super for this hour of the day.
Well, I've been up since about 4:30. I've been so nervous that I'd missed it, I wouldn't wake up and stuff, that I'm now kind of exhausted. I think I peaked.
Well, we're delighted to have you with us this morning, Rupert. And we were saying earlier on, Anna and myself, chatting about the book, we were lucky enough to be able to get our hands on a couple of copies earlier on in the week. And it is hilarious. Okay. And of course we needed to research a bit about it, but we kept turning the pages because it's such an honest, poignant, but highly witty memoir. Why was now the right time to write about your love of Oscar Wilde?
Well, I'd written a couple of other memoirs before, and I wanted to kind of make a trilogy or try and create a sort of box set, and I wanted to find a framework that I could use. And I love a particular American book called Adventures in the Screen Trade by William Goldman. And it describes the kind of inside story of Hollywood, which I adored. And I wanted to write the kind of Euro version of that and then construct a kind of some detours towards various memories through that. So that was really the main thrust of what I was trying to get at.
And Rupert, can I ask you...
And plus, you know...
Oh, here we go.
Go.
No, you
Speak. Oscar Wilde is often quoted at family gatherings and weddings in particular, you know, his witty one-liners. Where did your fascination with Oscar Wilde begin, Rupert?
My real fascination with him began quite late, actually. The more kind of politicized I saw my position as being, you know, a homosexual man, the more Oscar Wilde began to strike me as someone incredibly important to our movement, because essentially Oscar Wilde in Paris in the last days of his life really is the first portrait of an openly out gay man in modern history. Homosexuality was something that wasn't talked about before, and Wilde, being famous or infamous, was recognizable on the street, and you could point to him and you could say, that is a homosexual man. And that was an important point. That's it's like Adam and Eve eating the apple. From that moment, I think the journey to liberation began. And so for me, he's a kind of Christ figure in a way.
It's clear from the book that you have researched him so well. And in one lovely chapter, you're talking about, I think you were on stage at the time, and same-sex marriage had just been legalised, and you were walking through the same footsteps he had walked, the same footpaths he had walked through London, thinking of him, how he would be feeling, and so on. But what really struck us about the book is how honest you are about your industry, which is very refreshing because people gloss over the Hollywood thing. You're very honest about it, saying that potentially it's ageist and of your experiences of it hasn't all been wonderful.
I think it has been wonderful in the end. You know, the thing about show business is it's a pretty tough business. And what is amazing, you're right, is that even the press, they like to draw a veil over it, a pretty veil, and they don't really like to investigate it particularly. And in one sense, they're right. You know, what the public should be looking at is product, you know, rather than the ins and outs and the kind of the court scandals inside the movie business. But at the same time, it's fascinating and it's very funny, I think, and very human, and it's a merry-go-round. You go up, you go down, you get thrown off, you're suddenly reinvented. You know, you're not dead till you're dead, and sometimes you're not even dead then. So you never know when it's going to end either.
Brilliant line, Rupert. Lots of our viewers will be very familiar with, of course, the movie The Happy Prince, which ultimately you created. And you created it because you felt at the time that there weren't the right roles or enough roles for you in movies. Is that right?
Or any roles, as a matter of fact. No, I'd gone down to back on the skids, and I was desperate to try and, you know, keep myself going. So in one sense, me trying to write a film about Oscar Wilde originally was just because since I'd got famous in my best friend's wedding and I'd become kind of known for playing the gay best friend wielding a hairdryer, I thought, well, I could take the gay best friend back to the prototype, and I thought that might be a thing that I could get finance for Oscar. Also, all the other films about Oscar Wilde, they always stop when he goes to prison. But for me, the most interesting thing about him is prison and after. And it was exciting. In Ireland, when I had my premiere, Varadkar, your head came to the screening, and that was very thrilling too.
Yes, our Tánaiste, Leah Varadkar. Just with regards to the film, and again, it's a fascinating insight into how the industry works, because it took a long time to make. And initially, these hotshot Hollywood producers absolutely adored the script. You got a director on board, you got a great producer on board, and the suggestion was that the late great Philip Seymour Hoffman would be an excellent Oscar. And you mentioned that actually you made a mistake by saying no. I wrote the role for me, obviously, but I think anyone in your position would have done the same thing, no?
I suppose so. Sometimes you have to be clever rather than instinctive. And at the point where after 8 years of trying to get the movie together and it not happening, I did think to myself, God, what an idiot I was. I should have really let Philip Seymour Hoffman do it. And he would have been brilliant as Oscar Wilde. And I would have established myself, really in the highest level as a screenwriter. But anyway, I didn't. I kept going. And I'm thrilled because whatever else happens in my life now, I feel that I've put everything down that I can of my life, literally blood on the tracks of this film.
And that legacy is absolutely wonderful. You mentioned My Best Friend's Wedding a moment ago, Rupert, and lots of our viewers will, have a real sense of affection for you off the back of that movie. But is it true that you initially weren't going to take that role because you felt it was kind of an insignificant role at the time?
No, I was going to take it because, again, that was the beginning of my period. And that was another period that I was on the skids. And I had to take it. But it felt to me like the end of the road because the role itself, as it was originally written, was just two little scenes of this kind of token, rather boring, nondescript friend of the Julia Roberts character. And that really was one of the periods in my life. There's sometimes when you have green lights all the way, and that was one of them. And everything just grew and grew for me. It was unbelievable. And I got on so well with the director. He started writing new material for me. And then when the film started screening, the screening audience in America all said, we want that character back at the end. Why has he disappeared? So they reshot the end of the film with me in it. And the rest is my history. And it was, it was a great thing for me.
Remember that scene well. You stole the end scene. It was absolutely brilliant. And just showed that you don't have to have the romantic love to have love in your life, which I think was the perfect ending to that movie. Knowing what you know now, having been the actor, the screenwriter, director, producer, and let's say with The Happy Prince, would you do it all again? Would you write another movie? Would you have that vested interest, or is it just too much to take on?
No, you think that when you're doing it. It's rather like having a baby, and then as soon as you've had the baby, you're desperate to have another one. And I'm actually making my second film next year, and again, with my fantastic Irish director of photography, John Conroy, and we are starting shooting hopefully in September. So, it's a bug. Once you've got it, you don't really want to let go. And even now, the 10-year thing, the second film is no easier than the first film to pull together, to be quite honest. And but now I've learned something about myself, which I never knew before. I have much more, thousands of gallons more tenacity than I thought I had. I was such a flake all the way through my life. No,
we wouldn't have thought so.
It's a revelation. Well, we never thought you were a flake, just for the record, Rupert. The last time I had the pleasure of interviewing you, we were floating down the canal on a barge. I'm not sure it was as significant for you as it was for me, but it was a really lovely time. And I know you have great affection for Ireland. And we have a little note here on our notes this morning that there could be a move to Ireland. Is that true? Feel free to pander to us, by the way.
Well, I have an Irish grandmother. And so she was born in Cork, and for me, my whole life, the foundation, the kind of cornerstone of my adult life has been about being European, and I've never imagined how cut up I would feel about our country leaving the European Union. And so I'm thinking of trying to get Irish citizenship. And for my audition piece, I'm going to play a day in the death of Michael McLeamo, who's my new hero. Do you know him?
Well, I don't know him. I'm going to have to look him up, I'll be honest with you. But we would love to have you in on the couch as you move to Ireland. Please come and visit us.
OK, I will.
Rupert, lovely to chat to you this morning. Thank you so much for joining us, and the very best of luck over Christmas and beyond.
Thank you, Rupert.
And Rupert Everett's new memoir, To the End of the World Travels with Oscar Wilde, is out now.
Now we'll take a quick break. Join us for some Christmas dessert in the kitchen next.